Welcome to the Mapper Forward podcast, Jonas Ferrareso. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
I get excited when I say people's names correctly. That's so silly. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Very fine.
Great. It's so lovely to meet you and to have you on the podcast. You're joining us all the way from Brazil.
Yeah.
And you are the first coffee agronomist we've had on this podcast. So I'm excited for lots of reasons. I want
So
to
cool.
learn a bunch of stuff from you and have a really great conversation, because there's a lot of people in our audience that hear this term coffee agronomist and they don't know what it means, and they want to learn what it is, but they are a bit nervous about reaching out to people like you and saying, "Oh, what do you do and what does that really mean?" So I want to have a great conversation with you about all the stuff on coffee farms and the value chain and how COVID has kind of affected this situation. And something in particular that I want to make sure that we get to at some point in this conversation is how COVID has affected the local consumption of coffee in Brazil. Because I was looking through some of the articles that you've written. Because on top of
Mhm.
being an agronomist and a roaster and a cupper, you are a writer and you do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, kind of.
You're like across the whole value chain in ways
Yeah.
that I rarely see people get across the value chain. So this is very exciting, and thank you for doing this. We've been trying to make this happen for some time, so we're finally here. And I want to ask you to start with, like, what does an agronomist do?
Yes, a coffee agronomist. First, thank you. It's great to share a little bit of my knowledge and my passion for coffee with all the audience. It's so great to be here. I'm very
Thank you for
happy
being
to.
here.
So fine, so nice. So I'm the fourth generation in coffee, generation number four. My great great parent came from Italy in the 1980s to work in coffee in Brazil.
Wow.
So all the generations since reached me has been working in coffee. So coffee is running in my blood. So I always love coffee. I grow in a coffee farm. So when I get the age to go to the
Mm-hmm.
university, so I coffee is something I really want to work. So all my studies were focused on coffee and coffee fields, how to develop uh, coffee in the farms in the most sustainable way. And I wish love to work with small and medium farms, which usually don't have the help because of their size. Sometimes they do not have the right information to grow coffee. So I go to the fields and start to develop the technology for these farmers in a way that they could thrive in their farms and have some profit. So every day, or almost every day, I go to the coffee farms and take long walks in the fields between the trees, and it's fantastic. It's nature, and it's I work with something related to nature like agronomics.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool to see the coffee development and how the natural stuff happens. And the best thing is work with people too. I love work with the farmers. I always said in one of my quotes that in the specialty coffee, specialty are the people, not the coffee.
Yeah, wow,
The
that's
people
cool.
make the people that grow the coffee, dedicate the whole life to the coffee. They are very special because it's really harsh to work in the fields. People don't know if it will rain or if the prices will be good and in the future. So they are very very special.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people who come into particularly the specialty coffee market and consumers who consume specialty coffee wonder why specialty coffee is so specialty. And when you
Mm-hmm.
come to talk to them about the kinds of things like how COVID could affect specialty coffee, and you start to explain to them, well, specialty requires special attention. That's
Mm-hmm.
what kind of sets it aside. You've got to pay special attention to making sure that cherries are picked when they're ripe, not when they're underripe, not when they're overripe. They've got to be picked at the right time. The trees have to be maintained. Special varietals need to be planted that can maximize cup quality. You've got to have fermentation processes, all the right processing methods to elicit the best possible quality in the cup. And all of this requires attention. It requires focus, expertise, and that's what makes specialty. But in order to do all that kind of stuff, we've got to pay for expertise, we've got to pay for agronomists, we've got to pay for specialty pickers, we've got to pay for all of these kinds of things. And when you start to explain to consumers that that's kind of that's the differentiation between coffee and specialty coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And the term agronomist seems to be something that's been introduced to kind of the main consumer end of the value chain over the last, like hardcore, over the last, I guess, 5 years. And so what we're hearing a lot of is people saying, what specifically does an agronomist do for the coffee production side of the value chain? And so that's when I reached out to you on LinkedIn and started seeing all the articles that you were writing. I'm like, Jonas, it feels like it was like a year ago we started this process of trying to get you onto the podcast. But now that you're here, what are some of the specifics that go into an agronomist's day-to-day practice in the
Mm-hmm.
coffee industry or in coffee production?
Yeah, the agronomist is have to understand all the environmental that is the coffee is growing. So all the agronomists and the coffee agronomists like me, we study the soil, the climate, the rains, the plant, the biology, the physiology of the plant. We have to understand everything in a way that we could manage that to grow coffee in the most perfect conditions that we could. So I help farmers
Yeah.
to understand everything, like all the stuff that I told you. And when I say we, I and the farmer, me and the farmer, build a plan for the whole year. So which kind of fertilizer we have to use to grow coffee in a better way. If the soil have this and this and these characteristics, I have to use a specific kind of fertilizer. Or if we have a problem with disease and plagues which affected the coffee trees, what kind of strategy I have to build to help the farmer to not lose the production, the yields. So we manage the
Yep.
agro-environmental, in a way that we could uh, do all this stuff in balance. That is very important for the sustainable agriculture. Its balance is everything. So if I have some kind of disease, sometimes I do not need to use any agrochemicals. I just need to wait that the environmental by itself will deal with
Right.
that. I do not Sometimes I do not need to use anything, but if we have an unbalanced environmental, each time I use an agrochemical, the unbalance is
Right.
growing, it's turning every time bad. So sometimes I have to use some agrochemicals. It's impossible to live without
Yep.
any yet. maybe in the future we have better technology or most high quality chemicals that is more organic or natural, and we could deal with that without using any synthetic method to control diseases. But sometimes we need to use. So the agronomists like me go to the field, analyze that situation, and pick the best product, the less toxic one, and use in the lower rate as possible, just to keep the balance always stabilized, right?
Harmonized?
Yeah, yeah, harmonized. So this is a good agronomist
Right.
do. So sometimes the farmer do not want, sometimes not. Always the farmer do not want to harm the rivers, the
The whole
soil,
ecosystem?
but yeah, but sometimes they do not have the right
Right.
information to use that technology in its favor. So sometimes it's happened sadly because the agronomists have to work together with the farmer and do this, use the technology in the right way so everything stay in balance.
And do you find that farmers are they welcome, like as a consultant myself for a lot of businesses, you can impart your knowledge onto people that they've asked you to teach them things, and there are some people who just don't take that information on board because they've been doing it for a long time. Do you experience the same thing as an agronomist?
With my clients, it's good for me because for I have a good relationship with farmers. I treat them like friends and not usually like farmers. So I know his kids, his wife.
Uh-huh.
I sometimes have lunch and dinner with them.
Nice.
So I build a good bond with them because I really understand how hard it is to work in the farm, and I analyze the situation of the farmer because sometimes farmers do not have the resource
Yeah.
to do some investment in coffee. So I like to treat every farmer with a unique plan of management. So because of that, usually farmers take my advices and do whatever they can to do the right thing. And after a few months and years, they saw that the results are coming because I always said to my farmers, my friends, that I do not all the information that I give to them where it was well studied, researched. So I do not just say something that I'm not very right about the information. So always the results come back to the farmer and he produce more or he use less agrochemicals and he got good prices for their beans. So it's really nice to build like these good bonds with the farmer.
And is the goal of the agronomist, is it to increase yield? Is it to improve cup quality? Is it to maintain balance in the ecosystem? Or is it all of those things? Is it just one of those things? What's the goal of the agronomist when they enter a relationship with a producer?
Yeah, this is very interesting point because for about 15 years ago in Brazil, the most important thing that agronomists put all the efforts over is yields,
Yeah.
produce more coffee, which is important because just quality without volume don't means
Yeah.
profit. And now many agronomists is putting too much effort on the quality and the yields are getting down, which is bad too, because if we have low yields in the farm, means to produce the same amount of beans, we need more land,
Right.
which is not good. So if I produce like 20 bags of coffee in half hectare, if now I need the same 20 coffee, but I produce 10 bags per hectare, I need 1 hectare and more. This for
Yeah.
nature and forest is not good. So we have to have good yields to keep the farmers very productive in a small place to not expand too much. And I work with the quality too. It's very important because the customers are getting more interested in a high quality coffee. And the third part that you said is quality, yields, and
And the ecosystem,
oh, the
maintaining the
ecosystem, right?
ecosystem. Because I
Yeah,
would assume, could I ask you a question on that? Uh, how does how does what you just said, where if you're going to make sure that the yield to land size ratio
mhm.
is maximized, does that get more taxing on the ecosystem?
No, because if we use more land to produce the same amount of
Mm-hmm.
product, in this case, coffee beans, means that your technology is more efficient or using the right technology. The problem is if the yields are pushing too hard, sometimes the farmer could harm the
Right.
environmental because the usage of too much fertilizer or too much agrochemicals to improve the yields, it's not good too. This is very important. So there's a limit that it's okay. A
Mm-hmm.
farmer could earn money and produce quality and do not harm the environmental, because farmers never want to harm the environmental. It's their land.
Yep.
If they poison the water or the soil or everything they are drinking that water, they will grow crops in that soil. The farmer don't want that. The real farm
Yeah.
that live in the farm, the farmer understand that the rivers, the forest, the birds, everything is important in their land. Sometimes, like I told you, they do some mistakes because they do not have the right information, but all the farmers really love their land, their birds, their animals that run in the farm. So environmental for them is very important too.
And have you found that as you move into working with different teams and you are able to kind of, because it sounds like from me, and this is so educational for me, all of this that you've been talking about, so thank you. But have you found that as you do try and bring this kind of harmony and balance to all of those things, yield and ecosystem and cup quality, do you find that their profitability is starting to show a return on investment over time?
Yeah. It's just the strategy to get some profit, and that coffee it's offer your high quality coffee, environmental sustainable to the right markets.
Right.
Sometimes farmers don't know the way to reach the right roaster or the right grocery, and he sometimes is stuck with this high quality coffee and don't have a place to sell. That is bad. That's why I start working the coffee chain as uh, uh, working, understand the coffee chain as a whole, not just like coffee farms and trade and roaster and baristas and real thing and customers. So I start to, after I got my degree in agronomics and start to work with coffee, I saw there is a gap between all
Yep.
the players in this so huge chain. So I start to study and understand all the chain to bring all that information to the farm. So I teach my farmers how to roast the coffee, how to build a brand for their coffee, what is the best place to sell or the right people to sell this kind of coffee, the high quality, the medium quality, or the bad coffee, which has a market too. We cannot throw the bad coffee in
No.
the garbage because it's money and coffee. There are some people that appreciate that
Yep.
coffee, and I respect. For me, the good coffee is the one that you like it, not the one that someone told
Yep.
you that is good or
I
not.
agree with you on that.
So,
And also
so
the lower graded coffee still is taxing on the land. It's still taken something from the land in
yeah.
order to produce it. So just getting rid of it is, and I'm sure people are going to think this sounds very kind of, hippy dippy of me, but if we've taken from the land,
Mm-hmm.
getting rid of it is kind of disrespectful to the work of the people who have engaged in that, as well as disrespectful to the land that it's come from.
Exactly. That's have its value. Some people like to drink that
Yeah.
coffee. They're not forced to drink that coffee. It's just the taste of the place. Like in some places in Brazil, they like it like a very dark roasted
Yeah.
coffee. Some places in Brazil, they like light coffee, or some people like Robusta, some like Arabica, some like. So it's good to have
Yeah.
not just something that everyone have to follow, and this is good, this is not good. So I always separate the coffee in the farm for the farmer, and each coffee have different markets to explore. And so in that way, the farmer could have a profit more in one part, less in another, but not sell everything to one place, or produce 100 bags of specialty, but he have no market for this
Right.
bunch of specialty bags or something like that. So I like to always, like I told, build a plan and give all the information to the farmer. And I hope always that my clients someday work could walk by itself. I don't like to like hide stuff, to always keep that commercial
Yep.
bounds. So I teach and give all the information, everything that coffee farmers want to know about coffee and soil. I find a way to explain that to them, and so they could understand how the soil works. I do not like to, build a piece of paper and say do that.
No, it doesn't
So I
work,
like to
right?
explain everything. Yeah. So the farmers start to understand how complex it is, and maybe in the future he could work. He don't need my assistance anymore, and I could help
Yep.
another farm that is don't have the same assistance like this one.
I want to talk to you about soil for a second. Um,
Okay.
I don't know anything about it. I spend a lot of time researching gut microbiome, and I'm I'm intrigued by the bugs in soil, particularly different the microbiology of soil. And from what I understand, and the very little research that I've done, it's very unique for coffee and different agricultural products. The makeup of the microbiology of the soil is very important. How much do we understand this in the coffee agricultural society?
The management of the soil is something kind of new
Okay.
to like I always when I go to the farm, first I look to the ground, after I look to the trees, because soil is everything in the farm. A good land with very high life, with a lot of forms of life,
Yep.
like worms and fungi and bacteria and decomposed material. The farmer could grow everything over that the surface is it's well and healthy. So I love to understand well the farm and see what kind of life forms the soil have in this particular place, and study if, well, which kind of technique I could use with the farmer to improve the life of the soil. It's a whole universe in the soil. Have everything is a very beautiful balance with the worms and the material and the water cycle, the nutrients that circulate in the trees. It's really fantastic. And a few weeks ago, I watched it in a very nice documentary that called Kiss the Ground.
Kiss the Ground.
It's so great. It's on this is on the internet, and they tell all the importance of the soil, the life in the soil, and how the soil capture the carbon in the air and keep it in the ground. So if the soil could, how can I say that word? Keep it high quantities of carbon underneath and avoid global warming too. If we have like a very consistent soil, it could keep more carbon than all the kinds of technologies to capture carbon dioxide. Is a very, very good work that is being doing in many places in the world to keep the soil fertile and with a lot of organic matter. Do not plow too much the ground or
burn
too much.
Or burn the rainforest like Bolsonaro is doing.
Yeah, kind of. The burn is awful. The everything, all this how can I say, this carbon, when you burn, it's out on the atmosphere. So something that will take like 100 years to go to the atmosphere, now it's in 10 minutes. It's really bad. I assist a farm that was burned like 2 weeks ago, because in Brazil we're having problems now because of the fires too in many places. So the fire go into the farm and burn 8 hectares of farmland. And I lost the farm lost 40 years of soil construction in minutes, because the farm is really old, that have more than 100 years. So they have a lot of layers of organic matter that was burned because of this fire that is uncontrollable. We can't deal with that. So soil is important. It's good to keep it well and healthy, and coffee like it, and the environmental like it too.
So please excuse my ignorance with the questions if I sound silly when I ask these questions, but no doubt our audience is going to be wondering these things, so I'm going to ask them as well. I'm happy to look like a silly person when I ask these questions. So when a fire hits a farm and 40 years worth of organic development has gone into these farms. So if like what's happening here in Northern California with the wineries, they're all burning right now, and it's devastating. So if a fire hits the ground, does it just scorch the top layers of the soil, or does the actual destruction of the trees and plant matter that's on there, and the destruction of that, is that what's causing the destruction of the soil quality? How does it work?
The most fertile part of the soil is in the first layer.
Okay.
About I don't know. I just know in metrics is 20 centimeters.
20 centimeters. So
it's
that would
about something like that.
Yeah. So 20, it would be like 5 inches, I think.
Yeah. So all the fertility of the soil is in the top. So the most of the plants need this top soil very fertile.
Mm-hmm.
And when when something burn the soil, so the nutrients, mainly the nitrogen based nutrients, goes to the air. Some nutrients like magnesium and uh, potash, I
Potassium.
forget the word in English,
Potassium.
potassium, they stay in the ground because they are kind of rock stuff.
Yeah.
But the nitrogen, which are the most important nutrient in the soil, because it's really hard to add nitrogen in the
Yeah.
soil, all is went out, and we killed all the life in the first layer, which is important because the plants need the molecule in the certain form to absorb. So
Right.
there's a is a perfect way that the roots like saw the nutrients and kept put inside. So some bacteria and fungi decompose the organic matter in this layer and
Yeah.
turn to this form to plant absorb the nutrients. If I burn the soil and kill that bacteria and fungi, no more life will transform and change
Right.
this material to the right form that plant could absorb and see that nutrients and put inside the plant. We could use like uh, chemical fertilizers, which have the nutrients in the right form already,
Mm-hmm.
but the quality of the nutrition is not so good because when we put a chemical on the soil, it's like a vitamin.
Yeah. It's not the real thing, right? Like
Yeah, it's not a real
you have
thing.
to
If you
keep putting
just
it back in there.
yeah, always.
You don't
Yeah,
have a
it's
natural
like it
ecosystem that's
exactly.
reproducing it itself. Like that's the goal,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, that's the goal. If we have to always put this vitamin, this fertilizer
Mm.
in organic, the soil never will learn
Recover.
to deal. Yeah, by itself. It's the very a thin equilibrium that everything works well with all the
Yeah.
biochemistry
Wow.
and animals to do the things as perfect as the nature is. So if that is the problem, the soil take years and years to build this equilibrium again, this balance. So when it's burned, everything's went away. So it's really hard to build it again.
We're seeing here in California that people are saying, well, once the fires are gone, can't they just replant the trees?
Mm-hmm.
And they can replant it, but
Mm-hmm.
like you were saying, it's
Mm-hmm.
40 years worth of
Mm-hmm.
effort to rebuild the soil in order
Exactly.
that goes
Mm-hmm.
in a moment once the fire's gone across the top.
Yeah. Yeah. The
And all the microorganisms are all dead. For, the
mm-hmm.
heat sensitive ones, anyway, and most of them are.
Mm-hmm.
It's just devastating what's happening here with regards to wine country, and it keeps happening.
Mm-hmm.
And there
Mm-hmm.
are climate deniers everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
When I'd like to talk to you about that a little bit, because you look at kind of Brazil being a world leader when it comes to coffee production yields. I got some statistics that we expect this year. So you wrote this article in April, and this year it was expected that Brazil would produce somewhere between 57.2 and 62 million
Mm-hmm.
bags of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And that was as you're
Mm-hmm.
coming up to harvest. It's been a few months since that article.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do you know? Have you got a better idea of where that will be?
Yeah, it's most now it's more close to 62
To 62
million
million
bags.
bags.
And
That's, I mean, to say that that's massive is quite the understatement. given that there's
Mhm.
so much climate shifting that's going on around the world. Also, I don't know if people know this, but parts of Brazil were hit by savage hailstorms,
Mhm.
as well as fires that have been happening this year. On top of that, there's COVID.
Mhm.
And we're going to talk about all of this kind of stuff. But
Mhm.
when it comes to the idea of climate shifting and you being an agronomist and you being the person that people come to as climate being just one of the elements that you have to read and understand and tap into, how concerned are you, given that Brazil's yields are so high? How concerned are you about the role of climate shifting in in the quality of coffee as well as the yield of coffee coming out of Brazil over the next couple of decades?
The I saw that climate is being changing since I know I've been working with coffee. Every year something different
Yeah.
happen. Sometimes it's hails, sometimes in too much rain in a period in a season that we are not expected too much rain. So we have some diseases that come
Mm-hmm.
along. So we have droughts and heat waves and everything. This climate change is something that's undeniable. If I ask for any farmer, like the real
Mm-hmm.
ones, he knows that something is
Yeah.
changing. He lives in a farm for 40 years, 50 years. He know the climate well than I know, or any kind of researcher, because he lives in a place that climate is very important to him. The rain, the temperature, and everything. The problem is, I think agriculture is very important because people need the products for something like food or clothes or everything that need. It's important to be more
Right.
sustainable in the best way that they can. We can't. Sometimes people say to me, like, "Oh, you Brazil are producing too much food to export to China and are devastating the land for that. But okay, if you do not produce food for China, we will uh, uh, people will starve in China,
It's
and it's
economics at that
okay.
point, right?
Yeah, so we have to build something that more sustainable. So we have to think a better way to do that. So uh, Brazil now have about 7.8% of the land. It's used by agriculture and pasture, which is not too much
Right.
area in terms of numbers. We have about, if I'm not wrong, 60 million hectares of land, which are grow some kind of
Mm-hmm.
culture, crop, or have some kind of pasture for cattle. And coffee have about 2 million hectares of the 60 million hectares of land in agriculture. So always the research institutes in Brazil, the researchers are seeking for better technology to harm less the
Mm-hmm.
environmental, reduce land. Like 40 years ago, Brazil produced half the amount of coffee that produced before, but now the land is I'm sorry, I
Is
forget
it
what I'm
more?
talking about.
So the land now is more
Yes, the
efficient,
phone ring. Yeah, the land more efficient. 40 years ago, we produced 30 million bags in 2 million
right?
hectares. Now we produce the double amount of coffee in the same space. This is good because we do not, like I told you, more efficient using the technology in favor without harming the environmental,
The
the
harmony of the ecosystem.
yeah, all the crops in Brazil are more efficient than 20 years ago. The problem is some stuff changed, like the soy, for example. 40 years ago, soy had no importance in the market, but now many places are using soy-based
So you mean like
food. For,
soybeans?
yeah, soybeans.
Soybeans, right.
Yeah, so now soy is growing in Brazil so much, which I don't like too much. I believe that we have to have some kind of shares for each culture to not,
Diversity.
yeah, to have something more balanced.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to think everything again. This is important. Agriculture is not the bad guy, is a good guy, but we have to think the doing a better way for like cars. We need
Yeah,
cars
we need
and
to.
transportation. So we need to burn like carbon-based energy to run, or we could use another source of
Right.
energy. So we need cars. So you have to think another way to make it more sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, the right way to think about agriculture
Agriculture
too.
and more
Yeah.
responsible agricultural practices. So,
Yeah.
you know, going back to what I was saying about the Bolsonaro burning the rainforest
Mm-hmm.
down so that he
Mm-hmm.
can have cattle, you know, there can be more cattle farming in the
Mm-hmm.
rainforests. That doesn't sound like a responsible way to approach agriculture. There needs to be, and please correct me if I'm wrong, or I'm misinformed, but from the stuff that I've been trying to understand about the agriculture of Brazil and the way it's working, in the tiny fraction of little bit of information that I have from what I understand, the rainforests are being burnt down in order to increase the space that producers have to farm, particularly cattle. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's about the problem with the rainforest, which is something that we have in Brazil and some places like Bolivia and Peru,
Mm-hmm.
which is all the Amazon
Yep.
forest, is the value of the forest worth more than the cattle that we will put there.
Right.
So if I have one tree of mahogany with worth a lot of dollars, by these people that burn that cut first the place to take the wood out, which have a big value,
Yeah.
see the land without nothing and put pasture and cattle just to have more money. But the forest by itself worth much more than the
Yep.
cattle that I will put. But the space is free, so I put cattle
Right.
there. This is awful because we have plenty of land in Brazil to have cattle. We don't need to go to the forest to do that. By the way, the Amazon climate is bad for grow anything. It's too wet, too hot. It's very complicated to grow anything there. So there are better places to have cattle and pasture without going to the Amazon forest. The problem is usually this company or people are not really
It's
farmers, or
short-sighted,
someone
right?
that, yeah, they want to make money. So okay, let's take this forest out and put some cattle there. This is not the thing that farmers really think about the land. They know the importance of the land, like I told you. So it's important to keep that forest, the forest, to bring the rains to the center of Brazil, almost the rains that fall in this area that I
Mm-hmm.
live in during the summertime. Come to the forest, the Amazon forest, and the winds bring it down to the São Paulo state, to the Mato Grosso state. So even the soybean growers that are a little bit below know to keep the forest is important,
Yeah.
because if they do not have rain, there is no river that could
Wow.
create a huge land of soybeans. So they know the importance. But some people with bad, how can I say,
Intentions.
bad intentions go there. They said they are farmers, but they are not. and put the forest down to make just money for now. They do not understand farming, equilibrium, and nature, and nothing. And to the country, the laws protect that and guide the people to do agriculture in a sustainable way, following the right lines, because we know everything. The researcher have plenty information to produce grow pasture or produce corn or everything in the right way using the best technology, but the government need to build laws to standardize that, and then so in check if the places are being protected, and so we all could live together in a balanced way with forest, farms, and cities, which too is a huge problem in terms of pollution, they like sewer and trash and everything. So we have to think everything again, like clean the table and let's start again and find the best way to do it now. We don't have so much time to be doing small stuff anymore, in my opinion. We have to do it now, think again now, because in 10 years, I don't know if some places that have coffee could grow coffee anymore because of this, all this climate changes that are being happening in the last 10 years. It's very, very worried. I'm very, very worried about that farmers could not grow could not grow coffee anymore. Coffee is like Arabicas.
Yep.
It's very sensitive to weather, to temperature, to anything. It's a very trick culture to work.
Wow.
So if the climate change too much, we have not good blossom, and sometimes the leaves do not grow as I expected. So the yields are going down, and the farmers are not making money, and the farmer go to the city, and the city starts
Expand.
to grow.
And then
Yeah,
we need to take back
and so
land so that we can expand
yeah,
urbanization and
and then so it's climate, it's something that are affecting everything now.
yeah.
So after COVID, I think, in my opinion, too, many leaders, I hope so, sit together and think everything again about max production of stuff, about like how can I say that? Like people push so hard people to buy stuff that they don't need it, which is bad
Consumerism.
for for any reason. So I think it's something that is being changing for good, because I always said, for someone that talked to me about if the words are getting better or worse, I see 20 years ago it's worse. People are not thinking about anything. 40 years ago was worst, that
Yep.
people don't care about. So we getting better, but we need to faster the pace.
Accelerate our
Yeah, a
progress.
little bit.
Oh, I hear
Yeah.
you. What do you say to the people who say that, well, if Arabica can't grow, we'll just try and improve the quality of Robusta? Or we will find some form of genetic mutation, whether it's a man made mutation or whether it's a natural type of mutation. And humans are smart, so we'll just adapt.
It's coffee. For example, for coffee is a long-term crop. We need a lot of time just to build a new variety. Take about 20 years to study, understand, and stabilize the genetic. Usually, a farmer do not use GMO. There's no GMO coffee. All the techniques to breed coffee are made is the same way that it made is 100 years ago. Like take the flower and with this guy and with a swab
And
and
you
do the stuff
pollinate and
by hand. Yeah, it's something very, do not like do super genetic
Yeah.
modern stuff. It's kind of
Still old
old
school.
school.
Still with a
Yeah,
Q-tip. They take the pollen
yeah,
from the Q-tip and they go, and they put it on
yeah.
I mean, that's the way
The,
it's done, right?
yeah, we still do this stuff in coffee. We just improve some things about
Mm-hmm.
genetics. So when the plant is really tiny, we already know the genetic of this plant. So we do not need to grow until reach 4 years to get the seeds
Yep.
and put on the ground and see what's happened. Now the researchers could check with a small part like DNA
Yep.
and check this is good, this is not good, this is good. So we shortened the
The
time
research
to,
cycle.
yeah, exactly. But it's take time, energy, and a lot of efforts to do that. And sometimes the results are not the one that the researcher expected,
Mm-hmm.
because one thing that it's possible we to do the research in one site, check, oh, okay, it's fine. Let's share with the farmers. Let's put everywhere. There's new variety, but when you put on the ground, the coffee do not react at behave as the researcher expected, because biology is a very complex stuff
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of variations, and so the plants do not have the same behavior in the coffee research field, so they have to start again. So we need sometimes 40 years or 20 years of research, and the results are not good. Maybe in that time span, will the people do not have the genetic thing they are expected. So we have a shortened in the product. So maybe we do not have coffee or any kind rice or everything to supply the people around the world. So it's better we keep the things that we all already have and improve the way that we take care of our nature than are playing with genetics, and it's something that's really risky.
When we do things in the lab and we get results for the things that we do in the lab, the problem with that is that when you go and put it out in the field, the environmental variables that have an influence is vast. Do you know much about epigenetics?
Epigenetics,
Have you heard this term before?
I think so, but maybe in Portuguese a little bit different. I don't know.
Epigenetics, I know quite a bit about it with humans. It's what I studied at university, genetics. So it's different environmental factors that turn genes on and off in humans. So, and it usually affects, you know, the genes are turned on and off of particularly a woman's eggs. So this will make sense to coffee in a second. So if I'm pregnant and I'm pregnant with a girl and I experience trauma in the 3rd trimester, it's not me or my daughter whose genetics are affected. It's any of the eggs that she's carrying, her baby is carrying. So it's the generation, 2 generations after me, because the baby that I'm carrying, if it's a girl and her ovaries have developed as a fetus, it's the eggs that she's carrying that will be influenced, and the genes are turned on and off by any trauma I'm experiencing or any environmental factors I'm experiencing. So me now, if I do experience a trauma and I'm pregnant, the outcome of that and how the genetics are influenced won't be experienced until the 3rd generation after me. Right? So when we talk about plant genetics, do you know if the kinds of things that they're experiencing and playing with in the lab when it comes to coffee genetics, if that when it does get into the field, if that's playing a role from an epigenetic perspective. Because one thing that, if I've got this right, the work that World Coffee Research is doing, they haven't been able to stabilize any of the new genotypes that they have going out there beyond the F1 hybrids. Do you know, does the environment play a big role in the way that different genes are expressed by coffee plants?
The genetics in coffee, like the genome,
Yep, the genome.
genome is something really, really new. We just I forgot the word, to put all the genes together in coffee. About less than, I think less than 5 years ago, was a university in the United States, the US Davis, if
UC
I'm not
Davis.
wrong, UC Davis, that study first the genetics of one plant of coffee.
Right.
But we have many variations of the just in Arabica. In Brazil, we have more than 60 varieties of coffee. Each one have its own genotype and behave in a different way. So we do not know so much about coffee genetics yet.
Okay.
We just some bigger information, like some kind of like size, leaf size, fruit growth, color, but the genetics, because it's something related in terms of life, is genetics as associated with biochemistry, because coffee do not have a way to think about to react to something. Like if I feel bad, my body start to build some kind of biochemicals and change all my chemistry in my body, because what I'm seeing or my experience now, it's my how can I say, the
neurological
neurological system that are reacting.
Right.
Plant is biochemistry and hormones. So, for example, the flowering of for coffee or any plant, that is until now not well understand by researchers. How it's occur for all. It's or some hormones influence. They don't know exactly. It's some genetics. Yes, but not always. So flowering is something that is still studied in the coffee in all cultures. Sometimes it's water, but and the climate, the day length. But it's not something like well understand. So we are not too
we're not advanced. We don't understand.
Like humans, like humans, it's a lot of studies. Everyone are studying human and the behavior and genetics, or some diseases that are associated with our genes. So in coffee, something new to even the diseases. A few years ago, they discovered a gene, some genes that allow the plant to have resistance to coffee leaf rust, which is a huge base in the technology. But I have good relationship with a research institute in Brazil, which are Agronomic Institute of Campinas, and the researcher that study coffee leaf rust said that always the gene means resistance to coffee leaf rust. So we are still understanding one disease and one gene, and is not working well yet. So there's so much to learn in plants, and when the time we understand this for coffee, for example, a lot of stuff that are we having trouble now, maybe we could do it better, and understand that the epigenetics maybe are related with plants, or with coffee, which are annual, which are perennial crop. And so coffee is not well studied, sadly. but cultures like corn and soybean very well studied because big companies are in the
Yeah.
background of corn and soybeans, and coffee, I buy a seed and put on the ground and I have a plant for 20 years. So companies don't like that.
No.
They like something they have to sell the corn to the farmer every 90 days to plant again and
Yeah.
again and again. And he needs the genetics that was made for this company. But coffee is not work like that. A farmer could pick the cherry on the tree and plant again. So he do not need the company again. So private
No.
companies don't like to research too much about coffee. So that's why we have in the world initiatives like World Coffee Research
Yep.
that support the farmers by some sponsors that help the the World Coffee Research to develop
Progress.
research programs, and governments to help the farmers, like keeping the institutes or the government, the public institutes to do research in coffee. So there's a lot to learn
Yeah.
yet
The
in
the
coffee
role
genetics.
of agroeconomics and the way that it influences the direction that we move in the kinds of things that we're focusing on is almost criminal, in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that unless industry, big industry, is going to win, the focus of the agroeconomics isn't shifted towards what's going to be best for the land, what's going to be best for the people, what's going to be best for the farmers. And again, that sounds very hippy dippy of me, but it's not. What it is a long term strategy versus a short term gain
Mm-hmm.
for a smaller group of people, which are the people who have to talk to shareholders about profits. This is where you
Mm-hmm.
get companies like Monsanto that are investing heavily in the idea of soy in places like Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
because 99% of the soy crops in the world are governed, are planted with Monsanto focused seeds.
Mm-hmm.
This is a real problem. And the agroeconomics that are involved in that side of things is steering resources away from us being able to take a look at what's happening with coffee so that we can maintain some sort of a long-term strategy around that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's very important to keep this mind in long term, because if the companies like the soybean company want to explore too much, there is a time that's nothing more to explore. So it's something very dumb to do that. So
It's
it's
short-sighted, right?
yeah, money is important
Yeah.
to keep, but money is not the main point of anything. It's good to make money, but it's good to think in long term, because if you do not
Balance.
think, yeah, it's everything is about balance. It's for me, it's very important to like find the best strategy that we could all work together and build a better place with a good and a healthy trade with farmers, and people are not have to stop to consume everything, but we have to build better relation with the nature to could consume something without harming too much the environmental.
Yeah. So well said. So well said,
Mhm.
sir. Now, something that one of your articles really enlightened me about was a misconception that I had that most of the coffee that is produced in Brazil happens under mechanization.
Mhm.
And from what I read in your article, 70%, correct me if I'm wrong, 70% of
Mhm.
the coffee that's picked in Brazil is done by hand. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's in the mountainous area that we could not use any kind of machineries.
So is that mostly, well, I'm pretty sure the answer is yes, but it's mostly commercial grade coffee, right?
Mostly, yeah. But now we have about 15 to the number is really the how can I say the approximation.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not so good. It's about 15 to 25% are high graded coffee
Okay.
now because we in Brazil it's too much coffee and we do not have some public institute that how can I say
Yep.
monitorize
Monetize.
this number. So
Monitor.
yeah,
Monitor.
yeah, monitor this number. So it's about 15 to 25% of high graded specialty or fine coffees.
So if 70% of the coffee, we're going to go into a COVID discussion now.
Mhm.
So if 70% of the coffee in Brazil is picked by hand, and we know that Brazil is the country that's in the top 3 of countries that have been affected by COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a discussion about how COVID is affecting coffee production
Mm-hmm.
in Brazil and how it's
Mm-hmm.
affecting yields and the logistics and all of that kind of stuff, because it's very interesting to track how that's going to follow the harvest around both this year and next year. And help me understand something. When it comes to harvest of coffee in Brazil, I may be wrong here. Has the harvest shifted from being at certain times a year to being more or less all year round because of climate shifting?
Sorry,
So
all the way
has
around.
so has so does the harvest happen many times a year now
Okay, okay.
compared to at certain particular times because of climate shifting?
Yeah, the harvest season in Brazil it happens about the same season during about 2 to 3 months,
Yeah.
but sometimes due to the climate, the coffee starts to ripe a little bit earlier.
Right.
So what I saw in the farms that in the last few years we have a coffee starting to be ready to pick about 20 to 30 days in previously years.
Right.
So this year, due to the COVID thing, we have a problem with hand labor in some places because the harvest started usually in April in
Mm-hmm.
Brazil, and when it was when all the stuff was happening in which the COVID issue,
Yeah.
and the pickers, the coffee was ready to pick, but the pickers uh, do not come to the farms to pick that coffee because usually the pickers come to another regions in
They
Brazil
migrate,
that
right?
is, yeah, they migrate to the coffee fields, usually from the states like
Mm-hmm.
Bahia and some places in Minas Gerais too, but in the north of the state. And pickers are having trouble to move in the roads because many cities start to put some barriers
Right.
like checkpoints to check if why are you traveling, uh, like a lot of papers to get in the cities. People are afraid because of the virus, and
Yep.
some cities are not allowing or put a lot of bureaucracy to people go in the
Wow.
cities to work. So the harvest have about 30, sometimes 40 days of um, late, I
Delay,
forgot the
like a
word, to
delay.
delay, right. The delay. So some coffee fell in the
Oh
ground,
no.
and some coffee is still in the plant, but more coffee are on the ground. So some coffee were,
Wasted.
uh, yeah, is kind of spoiled.
Yep.
They have a market for that, but with a lower
Mm-hmm.
price. But after the month of August, second part of May, everything start to go well. People are start to way to live with COVID, which are what are we doing now.
Right.
So the thing starts to go work well again,
Mm-hmm.
and so the coffee was harvest nice, be better than I
Oh,
expected
awesome.
to. Yeah, because first I saw roads blocked, a lot of checkpoints, a lot of people that work in the coffee chain, like people with some kind of disease that could not work to because of the precautions to not
Right.
have the COVID, and some people that are have more than 60 years that
They can't
that
get out.
work they can get out. So we lost a lot of labor in the chain,
Wow.
truckers and everything. So I'm worried if that coffee from the farmland will reach the harbors in the Santos or another harbor that export coffee, or to the roaster company,
The
to the
the roasting
roasters,
company, yeah?
yeah, in Brazil to roast the coffee. But like I told you, after May and August, everyone learned how to deal with
Mm-hmm.
that, and now we have plenty of coffee in the warehouses that are waiting for exportation, and so the things in the end goes well.
So what you've noticed is, if I'm understanding it correctly, that there was an anticipation that it could have gone a couple of different ways in Brazil with COVID. And there were
Hmm.
challenges with regards to people being able to migrate around from a labour force perspective. But people found a way to normalize what was
Hmm.
happening, and
Hmm.
the workforce was able to get back to work in enough time
Hmm.
so that the harvest could be mostly saved. And you got somewhere around the $60 million, 60.2 million bags.
Bags.
And so the coffee's sitting in warehouses, and we've got to get it to the ports in order for it to be
Hmm.
exported to other countries. And so this year's harvest seems to have gone okay. Did I get that
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
So I want to ask, has there been, that you've noticed at this point, have there been COVID outbreaks that resulted from people doing that and the normalization of people just going back to work? Have you in the circles that you're moving in, have you noticed that
Hmm.
there has been transmission of the virus in our community?
When the COVID is spread are getting bad, I thought we will have many problems in the
Mm-hmm.
farms, because it's really hard to keep
Yeah.
distance, social distance in the farm, in the I forget the word, the places that the workers live during the harvest,
They're like,
uh,
I've,
the rooms
yeah,
that they
like
have
the
beds and stuff.
shelters, not shelters, that sounds really,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like their
kind of.
housing. Their housing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they farms do not have a house for each
Yeah.
picker.
You get a
It's
bed.
impossible to do that. Yeah. So so we have like
Quarters.
how this houses. What?
Their quarters. The pickers' quarters. That's
Quarters.
the word that
Yeah,
I was looking for.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Which are very nice with nice beds and bathrooms and kitchen and everything, but it's impossible
Yeah,
to
they're
keep a
still,
social
yeah.
distance there. They have to be there and live there together, so I was very worried about that. But now I do not have received any information for anyone in farms that they have like outbreak of COVID inside a coffee farm, and that is
That's
good.
phenomenal, right?
Most Yeah, it's so good. Maybe some happen, but I not received that information for anyone that I know that work in farms,
Mm.
because uh, uh, 3 weeks before the pickers came to the farms, each state develop a protocol for the farms how to work and to test and do some kind of um, time, how can I say that, to keep pickers as
Isolated?
far as they could for for 14
Mm-hmm.
days and take the precautions with mask. Maybe this could this helped the farmland to not have these spreads of COVID, at least in the coffee that I know,
And how
coffee
did you
farms.
guys come up with that protocol? Was it government directive? Was it you guys came together and said, all right, so we need to come up with some strategies in case different areas? It sounds like you was because you do have verticalization across the value chain as a part of your whole business offering. So is it people like you who have brought producers together and said, all right, so we've got this thing called COVID and we need to have a strategy
Mhm.
for it, just like we build a strategy for how to make soil healthy. Let's keep a strategy to how we're going to keep people healthy if this happens.
Mhm.
Was it something like that, or was it just every man for themselves?
We during in about March and
Mm-hmm.
April, we have a protocol for the
Mm-hmm.
government, the country, which are more generical.
Yeah,
No,
no,
it's
generic.
more
That's right. It's like
yeah, generic. Yeah, yeah,
across the board.
yeah, for everyone. So, but in each state they have like agriculture department, public
Right.
one, and then each department develop a plan for each
Okay.
state, and the cities too have the agriculture department. Usually they develop a plan for the city, a specific plan,
Mm-hmm.
and usually like the farms that I give consultants, I go to there and talk with the pickers and the farmer about the protocol, what is important to clean hands and use masks and take care of each one have to keep their belongs by itself, do not
Yep.
share stuff. So I explained and said that to everyone take care. So it's like everyone do a little part of the work to make everything works fine.
And did they embrace it, or did people think it was like a hoax? You know, here in America,
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of people that are like, it's not real. Stop listening to the news.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's
Mm-hmm.
real. I had
Mm-hmm.
COVID, so I know it's
Oh,
real. So
mm-hmm.
did you find that people were open to protecting each other?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought in the first, I think that people will not take too much
Uh-huh.
precautions because some people are it's not a good word to say, but it's stubborn
You got to
to
call
to
a
understand.
spade, mate.
Yeah. So, but farmers realize that COVID is a real
Mm.
thing that's dangerous. And I explained to them if they get sick, the whole farm have to stop to work.
Yeah.
We don't know if that person who got sick infected another one. So probably they have to stop working for 14
The whole
days
farm?
and yeah,
Right.
because we don't know if they're
Transmission.
spreading somewhere. Yeah, we and the farmer lost the workforce too because 14 days without one, two, or 10, or everyone do not could work in the coffee because they got sick. So I explained everything to the farmer in the best way that I could, and I think I saw in coffee farms in Brazil, all farmers are understand the importance to keep COVID out of the business, out of the farm, and keep the employees and the pickers healthy and well and working. They really care and understand that.
That's so wonderful. That's really great to hear
Yeah.
because I know of some origin countries that have just been devastated with regards to how COVID has affected the coffee picking community,
Mm-hmm.
particularly. So to hear that in Brazil, it's been such a mature approach to keeping each other safe and to protecting the agricultural consequences and the agroeconomic consequences of not being able to move forward. So I mean, 62 million bags is fantastic.
A lot of coffee to drink.
Yeah, which this is where I want to kind of talk about the local economy in Brazil, because I was having, I think the first chat that I had with Felipe Croce on this podcast, we were talking about, and even in the last conversation I had with him on the podcast, we were talking about how COVID will influence the way that coffee is consumed locally in Brazil, and how there may be a need to adapt to some logistical problems of coffee not being able to leave the country because of blockades that for trucks not being able to get to ports. And so one possible option there would be to stimulate a local economy in Brazil, given there's so many people in Brazil. And from what I understand, in 2019, of the 62 million-ish, 62, 63 million bags that were produced, 40 million went to exports and about 21 million bags went to the local economy. That's still quite a lot, right? In 2019.
Yeah.
Is coffee historically a beverage that people choose to drink in Brazil, or is that a new kind of thing?
No, it's one thing that is very good in Brazil, that it's, for me, it's fantastic that we have a very well developed domestic market for a long time. Brazilians, for some reason, always love to drink coffee. Coffee is part of Brazilian
That's
culture.
awesome.
So everyone drink coffee. Sometimes I talk with people in Colombia and Peru and Indonesia, and they say they must export coffee because people do not drink coffee as a regular beverage. And in Brazil, we have this fantastic domestic market, and which are changing now because we usually drink like commodity and traditional blends. And now, because of the new generation, people are more interested in specialty and learn more what is beyond the coffee cup, what the farmer, which region the coffee came. So the domestic market is it's so great. So the farmer, like my farmers, the farmers that I work, sell the season usually in the domestic market, even the specialty, so they could explore the market nearby, the customers nearby. And
That's so
this
cool.
Brazilian love coffee. Yeah, it's fantastic.
So they can tailor the coffee they're producing to the domestic market around them.
Yeah, it's not all the coffee, because 60 million bags is a lot of coffee yet, but we have to double the shot of espresso every day to drink all that
Double
coffee.
and triple, huh?
Yeah, but the 21 to 30 millions, because the statistic is it's kind of hard to trace too in the domestic market, because we have so many players in the domestic market. It's really hard to trace something that is not exported.
Yeah.
Do some kind of approximation to get the number, but it's about 21 to maybe 30 million bags are drink domestically in Brazil.
And when you, like here in America, when you say, "Can I have a coffee?" it means one thing. And in Australia, if you were to say to somebody, "I drink coffee," it would mean a completely different thing, right?
Really?
Well, yeah, because here, "Can I have a coffee?" means, "Can I have a cup of brewed coffee?" If you go to Australia, and even when I was a barista, if somebody, An Australian would never come up to you and say, "Can I have a coffee?" Only Americans come up to Australians and say, "Can I have a
Are you
coffee?"
American?
And we look at them and say, "Any particular kind of coffee? Do you want a latte? Do you want an espresso? What coffee do you want?" When people say they drink coffee in Brazil, what do they mean? How do most people drink coffee?
The brew one, like paper filter one.
Like a
Go.
pour over kind of a
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
So most people drink coffee pour over in Brazil?
Yeah, but it's not the fancy one like V60.
Okay. It's
It's
just like
more
a
the
sock and you pour.
not too traditional.
Let's call it traditional
Yeah,
instead of
very
easy.
Yeah, cheesy taste. Oh,
Well,
uh,
I love it. Lots of sugar, yeah?
yeah, uh,
And
but
you're
the
like,
people.
no, no milk, no sugar, don't do it.
The straight. The pullover is very popular in Brazil, the paper filter one, but a lot of places in Brazil, like Minas Gerais state, they like the fabric coffee in the cotton fabric, no, cotton fabric, right?
Right,
Like a
so
paper, yeah, a filter
like
made with fabric, the
that
cotton
is
one.
the like the sock thing, like the way that they do it
Yeah,
in Japan, right?
yeah, is that the very, very traditional drinkers like this kind of coffee.
Uh-huh.
But now, due to the special wave that are being coming in
Yeah.
Brazil, I saw a lot of farmers, even farmers and customers, understand better like Aeropress and VIC60 and espresso is something that is more common outside of home, like in Brazil we have places that we call bakeries,
Okay.
but it's not the same bakery that we think in US. It's a bakery that make bread and coffee and
Like a
sometimes
cafe in have you been to Australia?
something like that. No, I never been to
Oh,
Australia.
okay. You have to come. I'm moving back there in
Yeah.
January, so you have to come and visit us sometime soon in Australia. There's a lot of people that you'd really love to meet there.
Cool.
It,
I'm one of my farmers
uh-huh.
lived in Melbourne for 3 years.
Who?
And now he growing coffee in Brazil. He's a Brazilian, but his sister live in Australia, so he goes there to work in
Uh-huh.
Melbourne, and not related with coffee. But when he came back to Brazil, he are managing a coffee farm
Oh,
in
good on
Brazil now.
him. Good on
Yeah,
him.
he always told me stories about Australia.
I hope some of them are good.
Yeah, oh, good. He loves Australia.
Yeah, it's pretty hard not to love Australia, I have to tell you. When it comes to the local market in Brazil and what you do, I want to get into this verticalization that you help people with in your work, because in a lot of the work that I'm trying to do, I'm doing something similar with this podcast. We're trying to get people to understand across the whole kind of spectrum of what the coffee value chain is. If they have a better understanding of it, wherever it is that they occupy the value chain, they can be more responsible to the other players that are involved in that. So that's kind of the whole focus of this podcast, is to illuminate the different ways people operate within the value chain so that we can all become more aware of how we can elevate ourselves as a player in that. And you know, when people say the coffee value chain, one thing that we always want to try and help people understand is that the value chain is vastly different from different origins. And even within an origin, different regions within an origin have a different way of operating within a value chain. And so one thing that when I look at what you do, you cup, you roast, you're an agronomist, you understand every touch point of the value chain. So how does someone like you go from, okay, I'm a qualified agronomist, we're getting coffee growing at a better quality. There's this thing called specialty that seems to be booming across the world. How do you start to transition your clients so that they can start to, I guess, what's the right word? Understand who their potential customers are domestically, and then be able to adapt to that.
Mm-hmm. uh the farmer, the good one,
Yep.
understand that to make profit he needs to always be changing the way that he thinks. So I explain to them, and usually show how specialty coffee is important and how customers are caring more about the farmland, and the farmers are getting paid well. Explain all this chain to the farmer in the way that he could saw if he changed, they changed the way that he think about the chain, they could have better profit, reach better
Mm-hmm.
prices. I always give kind of classes to some farmers about some kind of how can I say, no, like I teach them to cup and what's the difference with
Uh-huh.
specialty, traditional, and bad coffee, so they can understand better the product they are selling, not just push a lot of stuff to them. And so this is the true, and you have to follow that. So I go in parts and different shares, and I always give them how can I say that, incentivate, I don't know,
Incentives?
the incentives to go to the fairs, to groceries, to different cafes,
You encourage
and
them to go
encourage
to
them,
those
right?
places. Yep.
Yeah, to see what is outside of the farm gate. And
Yes.
so be in touch with different players in the coffee chain is very important, so to stronger the bounds and keep the chain healthy and running well. So it's something that you build brick by brick,
Oh yeah. It
Yeah.
sounds like what you're trying to do is build an understanding with the producer of the consumer end of the market,
Mm-hmm.
so that
Mm-hmm.
perhaps either they choose to incorporate that into their business model domestically, and if
Mm-hmm.
not, they can at least understand how to improve their agricultural product so that when it is
Mm-hmm.
exported and experienced on the consumer end in another country, they're able to tailor that so that they can
Mm-hmm.
get the best quality results. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect.
How do you how do you find that producers are embracing, given a lot of the changes that are happening with COVID? How do you find that they're embracing wanting to move towards being involved in the consumer end domestically?
Um,
Are they open to it?
uh, to like get more involved
Yeah,
with the
so
domestic
yeah,
market.
because getting a roasting machine, not cheap.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Learning to become a roaster is a completely different skill set than becoming a producer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing how to market your product is a whole other
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
side of things, and then
Yeah.
understanding the going getting it to market and creating an online store and all of these kinds of things. So
Mm-hmm.
sure, from a supply chain perspective, they've got access to good quality coffee at a reasonable price. That's just one
Mm-hmm.
tick, right? But
Mm-hmm.
everybody thinks it can't be that hard to just roast. So I'm going to cook some coffee and I'm going to put it in a
Mm-hmm.
bag and
Uh,
right.
it's done.
Yeah, you and
Yeah.
I both feel the pain of trying to get people to
Mm-hmm.
understand, hey, wait, stop, it's
Mm-hmm.
not so easy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that they feel encouraged to take that journey? Or do you find that they
Mm-hmm.
get, nah, this is too hard, just let me grow coffee?
One point that interesting about the like do all the stuff in the farm,
Yeah.
that I say I try to use the machine. Usually roasters, some farmers in Brazil have a machine that we are not a very sophisticated probat with a lot of gadgets and stuff, but it's a
It
nice one
works.
if you could, yeah, like change maybe the gas source
Yeah.
and do some little change to understand better what's happening inside the drum.
Yeah.
So we make a few changes to make the roaster that the farmer already have good enough to roast coffee for the domestic market, for specialty graded, not for crazy specialty graded coffee. So I said to the customers that you are buying a good coffee which have a experience inside the bag, not just a so fancy coffee roasted in a so fancy roaster. So the experience that the wife of the farmers go there, hit the roaster, select the best beans, and roast as best as she could do. Usually the roasting are made by women because they
Really?
are more, yeah. And the farmer is most common because they are more take care more about the beans and know the how important to keep the beans well and roast well and keep tracing
Nice.
the numbers. Yeah, it's so good. So the farmer woman that which helped a lot the farmer, and you sometimes she is the farmer. She roast the coffee and put all the dedication inside the bag and sell a package of experience, not just fancy quality coffee. Because if the customer wants just fancy quality coffee, go to a high quality roaster and buy it a
Yeah.
8.5 or 8.6 point coffee. You are looking for points, not for the experience.
Yep.
So you taste the roaster, the experience, and the farm. And if you like it, you buy it again. So that is the relation that I build in, like roasting in the farm. Like do the best as you could. If you are getting money and you are how can I say, willing to buy a good quality roaster, I help them to buy the most affordable
Yeah.
one, and so we improve, and then like brick by brick. And so, and it's the same for
Yeah.
branding. We try first to do buy things to think together, build something better than a plastic bag with some roasted beans
And a
inside.
sock.
Yeah,
You put a free sock inside so people can
yeah,
brew it.
the full kit for brewing. Uh, it's like
You have to
like
send
you
me
know
that.
in the cereal, like you put a cereal and
You
I
put a
have a
little
gift.
toy in the
It's
cereal.
the sauce. Yeah, yeah.
You would put a little sock in the coffee bag for you.
Uh, so we change. I use the ideas that companies are using for packages and labels. We try to develop something like a kind of humble but express the farmer idea of that
Yeah.
thing. If the things are growing, he pays someone to develop something better. But like I do things
Responsibly. That's what it sounds like.
yeah, part by
Yeah.
part, not like, oh no, your roaster is not good, so put a lot of dollars in a roaster. So the farmer do not have a market yet. You have to explore first the domestic market. Okay, people like my coffee are buying a million bags a day, so I need a better roaster. So I need to buy a better machine. So that's the way how I work with the
And
farmers.
is marketing something that, like, when we look at different origins in the way that they're marketing their coffee, Panama has done such a fantastic job of the way that they market Panamanian coffee, particularly high end
Mm-hmm.
specialty. And
Mm-hmm.
as not only in their green quality, but locally, they're developing a market in Panama.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that your clients are focusing on when it comes to selling domestically? Is promoting Brazilian coffee and their own Brazilian
Mm-hmm.
coffee at farmers markets and at things like, is farmers markets a thing in Brazil?
Mm-hmm.
And is that where most producers would be more likely to sell their own coffee?
Oh yeah, but usually like things this market is not, how can I say, seasonal. Like once a month, farmers go there, build a tent, and could sell products direct to the customers. Something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
you
yeah,
said?
yeah.
Yeah,
Is that the
yeah.
way they usually do it?
Yeah, yeah. In some places, usually not in the countryside for specific for coffee is not common.
Hmm.
But near bigger cities, it's very common.
And so do producers focus a part of growing their business model, particularly post like during COVID? Is that a part of their business that they're looking to grow and market and develop?
Usually the farmers that work, some sell the coffee, some sell the coffee, the green coffee direct to some like roasters, but the small
Okay.
ones. Brazil is not usual to have like United States. Everywhere you go, have like a home
Or
roaster
everything.
roasting
Yeah.
coffee. Yeah, every garage and yeah, everywhere. So in Brazil, it's not too usual.
Uh-huh.
So cafes, like coffee shops, do not have their own roaster. It's not
Right.
common. They usually buy the coffee for big companies. So farmers start to sell. My clients usually sell the coffee, roasted coffee for these coffee shops that are interested to buy coffee directly for the farmer, not from a company that go to the some kind of huge more store and buy a 5 kilo pack of roasted coffee. And this is the and some farmers are now selling beans, roasted beans on the internet too, which is a huge market. And some are selling directly to like social media like
That's
Instagram.
awesome.
I said to
Encourage?
my farmers, if you're not encouraged to my farmers that if you are not in the internet, you're not people do not know
100%.
that you
Yeah.
are exist. So your coffee could be the best one, but nobody knows that. So I always encourage them to build an Instagram account and have in touch with many people, and some sell the coffee from this their internet social media
That's
too.
so awesome. Particularly
Yes,
because we're
okay.
getting into kind of like a lot of isolation is going to happen for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
So to
Mm-hmm.
be able to grow the domestic market and for
Mm-hmm.
producers to feel empowered to be able to go across the value
Mm-hmm.
chain domestically and have an export market, that's really
Mm-hmm.
inspiring.
Yeah, it's really cool. I don't like the sometimes it's important, I know, the people of third part men in the middle of the
Uh
stuff
huh.
like. And so I do not, if someone are looking for me to buy some coffee, I give the number from the farmer. I think the relation have to be made by all the parts as close as they can. So farmer get a better profit. The buyer have build a relationship with the
Yep.
farmer that in the next year he will go there in person to buy some coffee, and he start to understand what is the reality of the farm and so on and so on,
And
things like
it
that.
all just gets better because everybody knows everybody else
Yeah,
in the value chain,
yeah.
and they're all trying to.
Mm-hmm.
We say here in Map It
Mm-hmm.
Forward, our tagline is
Mm-hmm.
conspiring to each other's success.
Yeah, this is fun. For me, the internet is fantastic if people use the internet to build
Yeah.
bridges, not bubbles.
Oh, I like that.
So that's
Not building bridges, not
bridge,
bubbles.
not
Love that.
bubbles. Yeah, people. And so that's the problem with the internet is the
Too
bubbles
many
that
fucking
people,
bubbles.
yeah, yeah, everywhere. So I love to like, how can I say, to
You
put a
to
needle in this bubble
prick
to
the bubble
yeah,
and
blow,
blow,
yeah,
make it blow up.
yeah, and build
Yeah.
bridges between people, farmers, and everywhere.
Talking about building bridges, I get a lot of people come to me and say, "Look, Lee, you keep talking to us about building relationships with producers. How do people build relationships with producers in Brazil? What's the best way to go about doing that?"
One thing that is advantage and something that's bad for Brazilian farmers, because we have a good domestic market, farmers don't know well how to export coffee. It's something that farmers do not know how to do it. If you go to Colombia, for example, la FNC,
The
la
FNC,
Federación
yeah.
Nacional del Cafetaleros, they build a good relationship worldwide between farmers and another countries. They build cafes worldwide. So for farmers in Colombia, it's not hard to put the coffee in the federation and export. In Brazil, we don't have a thing like that.
Yep.
So sometimes I have people around the world that know me will love to buy some coffee from my farmers, but it's really hard to the farmer to do the exportation yet in Brazil.
Right.
Brazil is a country with a lot of bureaucracy sometimes.
No,
that
come
makes
on now.
things harder.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, a lot of bureaucracy for everything.
Everything works so well in Brazil.
Yeah.
There's no politics. There's no bureaucracy. What are you talking about? Bolsonaro's awesome.
A lot of papers and stuff.
Yeah,
And
geez.
even with a lot of this bureaucracy, we have a lot of problems. That's
shocking.
So for farmers, it's impossible. It's really. I once had a friend in South Korea. He wants to buy roasted coffee from the farmer with a very good price, like I think 50 times the price that in domestic market. And he said, okay, do all the stuff in your country, and I pay the money that you need to put the coffee in the ship or in.
So he would pay FOB. He would pay the exporting costs, and your Korean friend pays all the importing costs.
Yeah, my friend will pay everything. The importation, the shipping, the coffee, everything. I just need to find a way
The logistics.
to do but I take 6 months to understand, to find a company that know how to export roasted coffee. It was 10 years ago. Now it's kind of easy.
You know,
because
Felipe's dad
he
has a company that does that now.
Yeah, he because he have the expertise with exportation when he lived in Chicago with exportation company. And so, but I do not met Philippe in that time. I was just a humble agronomist with 1 year with my degree. And so I call a lot of some friends that I have in time. So I call many companies do not know how to export roasted coffee, with kind of papers they need, and so what kind of certification and so on. So it takes 6 months to understand everything and get the papers to put the coffee in the ship to reach the Korean. The ship, no, it went to the airplane.
Okay.
And to put the coffee in the airplane to reach South Korea. And so it's really hard. And no, I'm speaking English, so I can reach and understand a lot of papers that usually are in English to do that kind of exportation. And the farmers by itself, it's kind of the small ones and the medium ones is really hard to do that. So I can't sell the coffee outside of Brazil because of that. The farmer could not sell. It's really hard.
Did you learn English after becoming an agronomist, or have you been speaking? You speak great English.
Thank you.
No, thank you for learning so that you can be a spokesperson for what happens with your clients. But why did you learn English?
1 year before I get my degree, I stopped put a pause in my university, in my course.
And you traveled?
And I decided that I need to go to United States to learn English. So I lived in New York, in Brooklyn. But my accent from Brooklyn.
That's so great. You have a Brooklyn accent. Have you ever seen the movie 40-Year-Old Virgin?
Oh, yeah.
You know how he says, "This is a Brooklyn accent, bitch."
So I live at
That's what you need to say.
It was so
Oh,
fantastic. My city is really a tiny city in
yeah.
Brazil. 25,000 people is the size of my city, which I
Wow.
lived my whole life in the countryside. So I go to New York.
Ouch.
Uh, yeah, and I
Ouch.
do not speak English in that time. A
Wow.
very, very, very low quality English. And so I go to the Brooklyn, have lived with a very nice family, which are from they ancestor are from Puerto Rico,
Okay.
and they are very nice with me. I lived the whole 6 months with them and study English in an English school in Manhattan. And I met a lot of people, and then I start to understand what the word is, because New York is a kind of a slice of the world is inside New
And
York. So
yeah,
have people around the world, so everyone kind of respect you in some way,
yeah.
like don't care if you are tall and or you are Japanese or Brazilian, everyone live well
It's
there.
multicultural
And
there. Yeah.
yeah, it's so fantastic. I love New York and met a lot of friends there, have a great experience in the coffee area too, because there are a lot of stuff happening in New York every day. And so my English is from there.
I love it. And did you want to learn English so that it could contribute to your career, or because you just wanted to learn English?
No, it's for me. It's if you do not have speak well English, there's a lot of walls
Yeah,
that
barriers.
yeah, you can't go further because of that, and you are stuck in some parts. So for me to develop the idea that I have to work with coffee, small and medium farms that do not have the proper techniques or do not have the proper information. This is very important to know that I could communicate with the coffee chain with usually speak English. And so I have to push me a little further and learn English
That's
to
so
help.
awesome, because your whole um, community, the whole Brazilian producing community, gets to benefit from
Mm-hmm.
these decisions that you've made. It's
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
it's kind of important, like the article that you read from SCA,
Yep.
which are beyond the stereotype,
Yep.
is something that I wish to say. We are not is everything. Not all the coffee here is harvested by machines. The huge farms are important too, because they give supply to the world to drink coffee. But we are small farmers here. We have a small farmers that struggle every day to grow coffee, and have a lot of people that came to the farm. They generate work and pay that people. And so it's something that I think is people outside of Brazil don't see this the side of the coffee production. So English helped me a lot to
Yeah,
communicate with
man.
them.
It's great. Do you think that, I mean, when you look at the kind of the place that Brazilian coffee plays in the coffee industry worldwide, and we look at things like this, well, we look at the sea market and we see that it really hurts most producing countries, but it doesn't affect, from what my understanding is, that it doesn't affect Brazilian producers, high yield producers, as much as it does other producers around the world because of mechanization. Researching for this conversation, I realized that there is 70% of the coffee is picked by hand. And so, how is it possible that when we look at like today, the C is at about 111? Is that enough for Brazilian coffee producers to walk out with a profit?
The money that they are getting now with the coffee,
Yeah,
yeah, it's kind of in the, how can I say that, in the fringe of
breaking
profit.
even.
Yeah, almost breaking even, because the big land, the big farms,
Yep.
they could how can I say, uh, the money is used in a more efficient way
Right, because
because
of
the land is
mechanization.
huge. Yeah, and harvest coffee by hand is very
Yep.
expensive. It's about five times more expensive to harvest the same amount of berries in the using hand labor than with machines. So that's why small farmers and medium farms are getting bankruptcy because the
Right.
costs are very most of the year they lost money and some year they earn money, they got some
But it
profit.
doesn't
The
balance out.
problem, yeah, but the problem is the small and medium farms in Brazil, I think worldwide,
Yep.
love the land.
Yeah.
They sometimes profit is not something very important, which is not good
Survival
too
is what
because
they're
you go
going for.
bankrupt. Yeah, they love the land, so they not run the business as a usual business that people when the urban areas think, okay, if I'm not having money in my coffee shop, I close the
Right.
coffee shop and do other stuff. I don't know. But the farmers don't think it that
No.
way. They think, okay, I'm not making money this year, but this is my land,
Yep.
my 10 years, 20, 40, sometimes 100 years of my family are here working in this farm. I will not be a failure. I will not,
Yep.
So he persists. He struggle again, put all the efforts, and sometimes he not make money. But every year, this is worldwide. The farmer get poorer,
Yeah. Oh,
like
yeah.
making less money, and this is a problem because farmers do not leave the land. It's not the usual way that markets see the balance between demand
A supply.
and I forgot and supply. It works different. It's coffee. The same happens in
Cacao. Cacao.
cacao is the same thing, and usually perennial cultures happen that way because you plant coffee now
Yep.
today, the farmer, and will harvest after 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
If the prices are not good, okay, I already put all my money in the year one. I have to wait, and if not making money, I wait to the next year or maybe in the next year, because if I say, okay, let's close the farm, if I want to start again, I have to put the seed again and grow coffee again.
Wow.
It's not like a industry or a store. Okay, the money is not good. Let's turn off the light, close the door, and we wait 3 or 4 months. And when the owner go back to the company, the machines, everythings are the same, but the coffee is not work. Is something that
It's a
is
labor of
alive.
love. Yeah.
Yeah, you have. If you don't like it, I said when the COVID starts, everyone said, "Okay, let's close everything." But coffee do not care about COVID. The coffee trees need water, care, prune, and fertilizer. So the farmers still need to be running. If there's COVID, if it's a weekend, if it's some kind of holiday, or it rain, or no matter, the coffee tree don't care about
No.
that.
No.
So it's about a 24-hour labors. That's why farmers love so much their land.
It's going to be really interesting to see how this evolves over the next 2 years, don't you think, with regards to the way that the market's going to be affected by COVID? Because we've seen,
Mm-hmm.
an increase, particularly in the first couple of months, of how consumer behavior has been around coffee. And
Mm-hmm.
with different markets reacting in different ways, actually, let me say that different, with different communities reacting different ways to how they are, like here in the US, the way that people are reacting towards COVID is very different to the way that they're doing it in
Mm-hmm.
Australia and the way that they're doing it in Brazil. It's all very different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be very interesting for people like us who kind of get across the whole value chain to try and understand how we're going to have to adapt, because people are not going to
Mm-hmm.
stop drinking coffee
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that happens in the US and Brazil. People start to drink coffee
at
more
home.
inside the home. Yeah, but the consumption stays the same. In Brazil, one thing that is interesting about this home
Mm-hmm.
consumption is that many people that used to go to some coffee shops to drink coffee do not drink coffee in home. The coffee shops closed for almost 3 or 4 months.
Yep.
So people are realizing that the coffee that they buy in the grocery or store are really bad,
Yes.
close to the coffee they have in the
In the
coffee
sock.
shops. Yeah. So
I got to get me one of these socks.
so people start to realize that they need to buy better
Yeah.
coffee from home to drink a high quality coffee. So they start to understand better what is a specialty, what is in the back stage of the coffee
Yeah.
package. So people start to drink coffee with more responsibility, I
Mm-hmm.
think. So to understand more about coffee.
I love
So
that.
okay, by the coffee and my home is not good. Why? Because some company do the coffee for cheap price, and to make money it's something it's normal. So I have to pay a better price to have a high quality coffee in home too,
Right.
not just in the coffee shop. So this is a good point about that.
There's opportunity
People
there,
start
right?
to, yeah,
There's a great
yes, exactly.
opportunity for
People start to
growth.
buy grinders to grind their own coffee at
It's
home
crazy.
and things like that. It's so cool. This is the good part of COVID, the only good part also.
Well, we want to try and, I mean, a big part of this is how can we like identify where the positive growth has been in the market as a consequence of COVID, and how can we amplify that for people right now so that we can help people pivot. So, even locally in producing countries, is there a way that we can cultivate domestic markets and help people learn how to roast in a way that amplifies a new revenue stream by helping
Mm-hmm.
them to produce brew videos and build better marketing streams? So, yeah, you're doing an amazing job. Thank you so much for everything that you're contributing to that.
Okay. The domestic market, I think the customer really love to know more about what they are
Yeah.
putting inside their bodies, but there's something that people have to educate itself to go to the market or the grocery and understand what is inside the package. Like there's no problem that huge companies roast coffee worldwide, but people needs to start to care about what inside the package. So the company start to think, okay, people want to know more about what is inside the package. There's pesticides or not. There's organic that come from a farm that is sustainable or not.
Mm,
In my opinion, people want to know that information. They do not still do not realize it, or I don't know, do not are taking so much attention about why I buy this generic
yep.
grounded beans
It's
and
marketing,
why I
right?
do not buy. Yeah, it's something that with the internet is good because more people are having access to farms, understand what is happening in Colombia, Indonesia, in Brazil. And so I think the things are getting better with that, but it's still in slower than I wish.
I hope that one thing that COVID has done is made people pay more attention to less of the shiny shit
Mm-hmm.
and more of the real stuff,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can
Yeah,
become more
exactly.
conscious in the different value chains that they participate in. I think that's going to be, I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping that people, maybe I'm too optimistic, but
I
we'll
hope
see.
so. I think people, after this COVID outbreak that we had, people, after everything's start to settle. We have a vaccine, and people start to feel comfortable again to be in restaurants or traveling, and everything stay the same. We are human beings are really a lost case. I don't know what
Yeah.
we could do to show how important is to people have their freedom to go everywhere. Like I wish to go to New York, and now I can't
You don't want to
because
go to New
there's a
York right
blockage in the
now.
field.
Trust me, with the way
Yeah.
that New York is right
Yeah.
now, you don't want to be there.
Yeah.
There's so much crime and murder in
There's
New York right now. It's not worth being
yeah,
there.
I have a friend that told me that things are getting ugly
Same
there because
California, mate. Stay away. I'm
yeah.
leaving too.
Okay. So people start to understand the freedom to do the stuff, the idea to not stay home and go to outside to the nature and like enjoy your time now. I do not fully understand people which are seeking for money and power, which I think they do not realize that time in the earth that we have is limited. So don't matter if I have $1 billion, because one day this is not matter. I have to enjoy my time now, because maybe tomorrow we have an outbreak or something and we have to stay home, or we have to stop to drink coffee or using cars. I don't know. So I think people start to think more about that. So like enjoy your time now, because tomorrow we don't know. We have to make everything well to have a better tomorrow, but it's still a mystery what it will be tomorrow.
Our industry is lucky for having you.
Thank you.
This has been a delightful conversation. I hope that we get to have another one again in person one day.
Yeah, I hope so.
Who knows? I'm very excited about coming to Brazil and spending some time with the coffee community there
Yeah,
one day soon.
a lot of you love to visit a lot of farmers, love people that are interested in their work, and it will be
I
great.
can't wait. Thank you so much, Jonas, for doing this.
Thank you too. It's for a fantastic time.
The pleasure and the honor was all mine. Thank you so much, sir. You have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you, you
Peace, love,
too.
and peanut butter, everyone.
Bye bye.